Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Valiant, watching the stars through the main screen. 3 months into their cargo run to the outer colonies, everything had been quiet. Too quiet for his liking. Morrison had served 15 years in deep space, first as a Marine and now commanding escort ships for freight convoys. He knew that quiet never lasted long in the dark between stars. The convoy consisted of 5 massive cargo haulers carrying supplies to the new colonies. 2 destroyers protected them, his ship Valiant and the Thunder under Captain Nina Walsh. It was routine work, but Morrison took it seriously. Pirates and raiders loved targeting slow-moving freight ships. "Captain," Lieutenant Sam Carter called, from the communication station. "I'm picking up something odd." Morrison walked over to Carter's station. The young officer had good instincts, even if he was new to deep space runs. "What do you have?" "Distress signal, sir. Very faint. It's coming from an uncharted system about 6 hours off our route." Carter adjusted his controls and static filled the bridge speakers. Through the noise, they could hear a weak voice speaking in the trade language most species used. "This is Kithara Vessel Morning Star. Hull breach, life support failing. Please, help. Any ship. Please help." Commander Lisa Grant looked up from her tactical station. "Kithara are peaceful traders, Captain. They don't carry weapons or cause trouble." Morrison nodded. He knew the Kithara well. They were small furry beings who traded throughout the galaxy. They never lied and never cheated anyone. If a Kithara ship was in trouble, they really needed help. "Sir," Chief Engineer Ryan Brooks spoke from his station near the back of the bridge. "Regulations say we can't leave our shipping route without direct orders from Fleet Command." Morrison stared at the tactical display showing their current position and the source of the distress call. 6 hours was not a long detour. The cargo would be a day late at most, but regulations were regulations for good reasons. "Captain," Dr. Helen Martinez's voice came over the comm from the medical bay. "If there are survivors, they might not have much time. Kithara don't handle vacuum exposure well." Morrison made his decision. "Carter, send a message to the convoy. We're detouring to investigate a distress call. Thunder will escort the cargo ships to the next waypoint and wait for us there." "Sir," Grant said quietly. "If Fleet Command finds out we left our assigned route, then I'll deal with it," Morrison replied. "We don't leave people to die in space, not while I'm in command." The Valiant broke away from the convoy and jumped into hyperspace. 6 hours later, they dropped back into normal space at the edge of an unknown system. What they found was not what Morrison expected. A massive space station orbited a dead brown planet. The station was huge, easily big enough to hold 50,000 people. It looked old, but well-maintained. Strange energy readings came from its hull. "Sir," Carter said, "I'm reading life signs aboard that station, hundreds of them, but no distress signal anymore." "Could be their transmitter failed," Brooks suggested from his engineering station. Grant was studying her tactical display. "Captain, this station has some serious weapons. Military-grade shield generators. This is not a normal trading post." Morrison felt the hair on his neck stand up. Something was wrong here. "Carter, try to contact the station. Ask for permission to dock and offer assistance." Carter worked his controls for several minutes. "No response, sir. They're not answering any communications." "Life signs?" Morrison asked, still reading hundreds of beings aboard. "Multiple species from what the sensors can tell." Carter paused. "Sir, some of those readings are very weak, like they're injured or sick." Morrison looked at his crew. Grant was ready for a fight, her hand near the weapons controls. Brooks was running diagnostics on their own systems. Carter was trying different communication channels. Dr. Martinez had come up to the bridge and was studying the sensor readings. "Those life signs," Martinez said quietly. "They're not distributed normally throughout the station. They're concentrated in specific areas, like they're being held somewhere." Morrison felt ice in his stomach. "Grant, bring us to yellow alert. Brooks, prepare a boarding shuttle, full Marine kit." "Sir," Grant said, "if this is a trap, then we'll deal with it. But if there are people in trouble on that station, we're going to help them. Morrison turned to Carter. Send a message to Captain Walsh. Tell her our status and to be ready for anything. The Valiant moved closer to the station. As they approached, Morrison could see the hull was scarred and patched in many places. This was not a new facility. It had been here for years, maybe decades. Docking bay opening, Brooks reported. They're letting us in. Or drawing us in, Grant muttered. Morrison ignored her comment. Take us in, Brooks. Grant, keep weapons ready, but not targeted. We don't want to start a fight if this is innocent. The Valiant slid into the docking bay. The bay was huge, designed for ships much larger than their destroyer. As the bay doors closed behind them, Morrison saw other ships docked nearby. They were from different species, but they all looked damaged. Some had blast marks on their hulls. Atmosphere in the bay is breathable, Brooks reported. Gravity is standard. Temperature normal. Morrison turned to his security chief. Carter, you're with me. Grant, you have the bridge. If anything goes wrong, get us out of here. Morrison, Carter, and 6 Marines suited up and left the ship. The docking bay was empty except for the damaged ships. Emergency lighting cast strange shadows on the walls. The air smelled wrong, like fear and pain. They found an airlock leading into the station proper. Morrison punched the control panel and the door opened. The corridor beyond was clean but somehow felt evil. The lighting was too dim and the walls were the color of dried blood. As they moved deeper into the station, Morrison began to hear sounds. Voices speaking in languages he didn't recognize. Some were crying, some were screaming. Captain, Carter whispered, I don't like this. Morrison didn't like it either, but they had come too far to turn back now. They followed the sounds down, several corridors until they reached a large door marked with symbols Morrison didn't recognize. He pressed his ear to the door and heard dozens of voices beyond it. All of them sounded scared and hurt. Morrison looked at his Marines and gestured to the door. They nodded and raised their weapons. Morrison hit the door control and stepped through. What he saw in the room beyond made him sick to his stomach. Hundreds of beings from dozens of different species were crammed into cages. The cages were too small and too crowded. Many of the prisoners were injured. Some were clearly dying. The smell of waste and fear filled the air. This was not a trading station. This was something much worse. Dear God, Carter whispered behind him. One of the prisoners, a small Cathara, looked up at Morrison with large, frightened eyes. Human, the alien whispered. You came. You really came. Morrison felt rage building in his chest. Someone was going to pay for this. Someone was going to pay dearly. Morrison stared at the cages full of alien prisoners. His Marines spread out behind him, their weapons ready. The small Cathara who had spoken pressed against the bars of her cage, hope filling her large eyes. How many? Morrison asked Carter, quietly. Carter checked his scanner. Over 300 prisoners, Captain. Dozens of different species. Some are in really bad shape. Morrison opened his comm channel. Valiant, this is Morrison. We have a situation. This is not a distress call. This is a slave operation. I repeat, this is a slave operation. Grant's voice crackled back. Understood, Captain. What are your orders? Get Dr. Martinez down here with medical supplies. Contact Captain Walsh and tell her what we found. And, Grant, bring the ship to full combat alert. Yes, sir. Morrison walked closer to the cages. The prisoners watched him with a mixture of hope and fear. Many had been beaten. Some had strange collars around their necks that sparked with electricity when they moved too much. We're here to help, Morrison said loudly. We're going to get you out of here. A large reptilian being in one of the cages spoke up. Human, you need to leave. The masters will return soon. They will kill you and put you in cages too. When did they leave? Morrison asked. 2 days ago. But they said they would be back today. The reptilian scales were dull and scarred. They have many ships, big ships with lots of weapons. Morrison felt the trap closing around them, but he couldn't leave these people here. Carter, get on the comm to Brooks. Tell him to start working on these cage locks. Marines, spread out and secure this area. Dr. Martinez arrived with 2 medical techs and a cart full of supplies. She took one look at the prisoners and her face went white. My God, Jake, what did they do to these people? Just help them, Helen. We'll worry about justice later. Martinez immediately went to work on the most injured prisoners. The electric collars were the first priority. Brooks arrived with a toolkit and began examining the cage locks. These are simple electronic locks, Brooks said. I can override them, but it'll take a few minutes for each one. Do it, Morrison ordered. As Brooks worked on the first cage, Morrison questioned the prisoners about their captors. The story that emerged made his blood boil. The slavers were called the Vorthak, a predatory species that raided peaceful worlds for slaves. They sold their captives to buyers throughout the galaxy. The leader is called Warlord Krex, the Cathera told Morrison. He is very cruel. He enjoys causing pain. Morrison was about to ask more questions when his comm unit buzzed. Captain, this is Grant. We have a problem. Multiple ships just dropped out of hyperspace. 12 vessels, all armed. They're surrounding us. Morrison closed his eyes. The trap had closed. How long until they're in weapons range? 5 minutes, sir. Morrison looked at the hundreds of prisoners still in cages. There was no way to get them all out in 5 minutes. Grant, prepare to engage. Do not fire first, but be ready. Sir, 12 ships against 1. I know the odds, Commander. Just follow orders. Morrison turned to Brooks. How fast can you get these cages open? Working as fast as I can, Captain. But there are over 100 cages. Morrison's comm crackled. Again. This time it was an alien voice speaking in broken human English. Human ship. This is Warlord Krex. You are trespassing on my property. Leave now, and we will not destroy you. Morrison picked up his comm. This is Captain Morrison of the UES Valiant. We received a distress call and found people being held against their will. We're here to help them. Krex's laughter was harsh and cruel. Distress call? Yes, we use that trick often. Brings in soft-hearted fools like you. Leave now, human. Take your ship and go. Forget what you have seen here. That's not going to happen, Morrison replied. Then you will die with the rest of them, but first let me make you an offer. I will pay you well for your silence. 1,000,000 credits to fly away, and forget this place exists. Morrison felt rage building in his chest. You made a mistake today, Krex. You showed us what you are. And what am I? Human. A dead man. The comm went silent for a moment. Then Krex spoke again, his voice full of anger. Very well, human. You have chosen death. My ships will turn yours into scrap metal. Morrison switched back to his ship's channel. Grant, they're going to attack. Defend yourself. Sir, we're outgunned 12-1. Then we'll have to be 12. Time's better than they are. Morrison turned to his Marines. Start getting these people out of the cages. Move them to the safest part of the station you can find. Brooks, work faster on those locks. The first explosions shook the station as the battle began outside. Morrison could hear weapons fire and the sound of his ship's engines. Grant was a good tactical officer. If anyone could keep them alive against those odds, it was her. More cages opened and prisoners stumbled out. Dr. Martinez was working frantically to treat the injured. Many of the aliens could barely walk after being cramped in the small cages for so long. Captain, Carter called out, the station's defense systems are powering up. Morrison looked up at the ceiling as lights began flashing. Can we control them? Maybe. If I can find the control room. Take 2 Marines and go. See what you can do. Morrison helped carry an injured prisoner to the medical area Martinez had set up. The alien was from a species he didn't recognize, with blue skin and 4 arms. All 4 arms had been broken. Why? The alien whispered to Morrison. Why help us? You don't know us. Morrison looked down at the broken creature. Because it's the right thing to do. Another explosion rocked the station. Morrison's comm crackled with Grant's voice. Captain, we've taken some damage, but we're holding our own. These slaver ships aren't as tough as they look. Good. Keep fighting. Brooks had opened 20 cages now. The freed prisoners were helping others who were too weak to walk. Despite their own suffering, they helped each other. Morrison found that encouraging. Carter's voice came over the comm. "Captain, I found the control room. These defense systems are incredible. Military-grade weapons, I think I can turn them against the slaver ships." "Do it." Morrison felt the station shudder as massive weapons began firing. Through the hull, he could hear the deep bass sound of heavy cannons. The station's weapons were much more powerful than anything on the slaver ships. "Grant, report," Morrison called. "Sir, the station just opened fire on the slaver fleet. 3 of their ships are already destroyed. The others are trying to retreat. Don't let them escape." "Copy that, sir." Morrison continued helping free prisoners while the battle raged outside. Each cage that opened revealed new horrors. Some prisoners had been tortured for entertainment. Others had been experimented on by the slavers. All of them had been treated as property instead of living beings. Dr. Martinez was overwhelmed with patients. "Jake, I need more medical supplies and we need to get these people to a real medical facility." "We'll get them help, Helen. I promise." The explosions outside were getting less frequent. Morrison hoped that meant the slavers were losing. He opened his comm to Carter in the control room. "What's the situation up there?" "We got most of them, Captain. 2 ships escaped into hyperspace. But I found something else in the computer systems. This isn't the only facility, there are dozens of them throughout this sector." Morrison felt cold anger settle in his stomach. This wasn't just one group of criminals. This was a network, an industry built on suffering. Download everything you can from their computers. We're going to need that information. "Already on it, sir." Morrison looked around at the freed prisoners. Over 200 aliens from dozens of worlds, all victims of the same evil. Some were crying with relief. Others were too damaged to show emotion. But they were free now. And Morrison was going to make sure they stayed that way. He opened his comm to Grant. "Status report, Commander. Slaver fleet destroyed, sir. 2 ships escaped, but we damaged them badly. Valiant took some hits, but nothing critical." "Good work. Now contact Captain Walsh. Tell her we need medical ships and a full investigation team. This is bigger than just one station." Morrison walked over to the small Cathara who had first spoken to him. She was sitting with several other freed prisoners, sharing what little food Dr. Martinez had been able to find. "What's your name?" Morrison asked. "Zila," she replied. "I was traveling to trade with the colonies when they captured my ship. They killed my crew and put me in that cage." "How long were you here?" 6 months. Some have been here much longer." Zila looked up at Morrison with gratitude in her large eyes. "Thank you for coming. Thank you for not leaving us." Morrison knelt down beside her. "Zila, I need you to help us. We need to know about the other facilities, the other places where they keep prisoners." Zila nodded eagerly. "Yes, I will help. We all will help. This evil must end." Morrison stood up and looked around at all the freed prisoners. They looked at him with hope and determination. These people had been through hell, but they were survivors. And now they wanted justice. Morrison was going to make sure they got it. 3 days after the battle at the slave station, Admiral Kate Harrison arrived with a full battle group. Morrison stood in the conference room of the flagship UES Retribution, watching as the Admiral reviewed the evidence they had gathered. "Admiral, Harrison was a tough woman who had commanded fleets in the border wars. She didn't show emotion easily, but Morrison could see anger in her eyes as she read the reports. Over 300 prisoners rescued from one facility," Harrison said quietly. "And the computer files showed dozens more stations like this one." Morrison nodded. "Yes, ma'am. We've identified at least 40 facilities across 3 star systems. The scale of this operation is massive." Dr. Martinez sat across from Morrison, looking tired after 3 days of treating rescued aliens. "Admiral, what we found there was systematic torture. These weren't just slaves being held for labor. They were being broken down mentally and physically." Harrison closed the file and looked at Morrison. "Captain, I've received new orders from Earth Command. We're to locate and destroy every facility in this network, every last one." "Yes, ma'am. Morrison replied. What about the prisoners we've already rescued? Medical ships are on the way to take them to proper treatment facilities, but some of them have volunteered to help us find the other stations. Morrison wasn't surprised. Many of the freed aliens had begged to help with the rescue operations. They wanted justice for what had been done to them. There's something else, Harrison continued. Intelligence has identified the real power behind this operation. It's not just the Vorthak raiders. They're working for someone bigger. Morrison leaned forward. Who? A group called the Hegemony Council. They're supposedly respectable leaders from several alien governments. They've been funding and protecting the slave trade for decades. Morrison felt his anger growing. Bad enough that raiders were capturing innocent people. But for government officials to be involved made it even worse. What are our orders regarding the hegemony? Morrison asked. Harrison's smile was cold. We're going to expose them. Every dirty deal, every payment, every protected shipment. The galaxy is going to know exactly what they've been doing. Over the next week, the human fleet began their campaign against the slave network. Morrison commanded a task force of 4 ships, including the Valiant. Their job was to hit the smaller facilities while larger forces attacked the main bases. The first target was a processing station in the Kepler system. Intelligence from the rescued prisoners indicated this facility specialized in breaking down new captives before sending them to buyers. Morrison's task force dropped out of hyperspace near the station. Unlike the first facility, this one was heavily guarded. 6 warships patrolled around it, and the station itself had military-grade shields and weapons. Sir, Grant reported from her tactical station, they're powering weapons and shields. No. Attempt to communicate. They know why we're here, Morrison replied. All ships attack pattern Alpha. Take out those patrol ships first. The battle was fierce but brief. The human ships had better armor and weapons than the slavers expected. Within an hour, all 6 patrol ships were destroyed and the station's defenses were down. Morrison led the boarding party personally. What they found inside was even worse than the first station. This facility was designed to break the will of prisoners through torture and psychological manipulation. Sergeant Tony Miller, who commanded the Marine boarding team, had seen combat in 3 wars. But even he looked sick as they explored the station. Captain, Miller said quietly, we need to get these people medical attention immediately. Some of them have been here for years. Morrison nodded and called for Dr. Martinez and her medical team. Over 400 prisoners were rescued from this facility, many in worse condition than those from the first station. But they also found something else. The station's computer files contained detailed records of buyers and sellers throughout the galaxy. Names, locations, payment records. Everything needed to track down the entire network. Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez, the task force intelligence officer, spent hours downloading the files. Captain, this is incredible. They kept records of everything. We can trace every transaction back to its source. Morrison studied the data on his command tablet. The network was even larger than they had thought. Thousands of beings were being held in dozens of facilities, and the buyers included some of the most powerful people in the galaxy. Sir, Rodriguez continued, look at this list of regular buyers. Government officials from 12 different worlds, corporate leaders from major trading companies, even some military officers from supposedly friendly nations. Morrison felt sick. How long has this been going on? According to these records, at least 50 years, maybe longer. Morrison closed his eyes. 50 years of suffering. 50 years of people being stolen from their families and sold like property, and all of it protected by people who were supposed to be civilized leaders. Rodriguez, send copies of all this data to Admiral Harrison, then make sure backup copies get sent to Earth Command and the Colonial Defense Force. Yes, sir. As the medical teams worked to help the rescued prisoners, Morrison interviewed some of them about other facilities. A young human woman named Zara had been captured from a colony ship 2 years earlier. She had been forced to work in the station's computer systems and knew about several other locations. The main hub is a planet called Kervac, Zara told Morrison. That's where they keep the ones they can't break. The fighters and the leaders, it's like a fortress. Morrison made notes on his tablet. How many prisoners there? Thousands, maybe tens of thousands. It's where they send anyone who won't give up hope. Zara's eyes were hard with anger. The worst guards work there, the ones who enjoy causing pain. Morrison looked at the young woman. She had been through hell but hadn't been broken. There was still fire in her eyes. Zara, would you be willing to help us find these places? You know the systems better than our intelligence people do. Yes, she said immediately. I want to help. These animals destroyed my life and the lives of thousands of others. I want to see them pay. Morrison nodded. Then you'll work with our intelligence team. But I want you to talk to Dr. Martinez first. Make sure you're ready for this. Over the next month, Morrison's task force hit 6 more facilities. Each one they found led to information about others. The network seemed endless, but they were making progress. The freed prisoners who joined the human forces proved invaluable. They knew the slavers' methods and could predict where facilities would be hidden. Many had special skills that helped with the rescue operations. But Morrison was starting to realize the true scope of what they were fighting. This wasn't just a criminal organization. It was an institution that had roots throughout the galaxy's power structure. After rescuing over 2,000 prisoners from 8 facilities, Morrison received new orders from Admiral Harrison. The main assault on Kervac was being planned, but intelligence suggested the Hegemony Council was planning to strike back at human colonies. They're getting desperate, Harrison told Morrison during a secure communication. Our attacks are costing them billions of credits and exposing their operations. They want to force us to stop. Morrison looked at the star charts showing human colony locations. Most of the outer colonies had minimal defenses. They would be easy targets for slaver fleets. What are our orders, Admiral? Protect the colonies and continue the rescue operations. But Jake, be careful. Intelligence suggests they're putting bounties on the heads of our commanders. You and the other task force leaders are specific targets. Morrison wasn't worried about his own safety, but he was concerned about his crew and the rescued prisoners who were helping them. These people had already suffered enough. Admiral, request permission to take the fight directly to the Hegemony Council. We have enough evidence to expose them publicly. Already in the works, Captain. The Colonial Senate is preparing to release all the evidence we've gathered. But that will take time. For now, keep hitting their facilities and protecting innocent people. Morrison ended the communication and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, thousands of people were still trapped in cages waiting for rescue, and somewhere else powerful people were planning to continue the slave trade no matter what the cost. But they had made one mistake. They had shown humans what they really were. And humans didn't forgive or forget when it came to protecting innocent people. Morrison opened a comm channel to his fleet. All ships, this is Morrison. Prepare for the next operation. We have more people to save. The hunt would continue until every facility was destroyed and every prisoner was free. Morrison had made that promise to Zila and the other survivors, and he intended to keep it, no matter what the cost. 2 months into the campaign against the slave network, Morrison received an unexpected communication. The message came through diplomatic channels, marked with the seal of the Hegemony Council. Morrison sat in his ready room aboard the Valiant, reading the message for the 3rd time. Counselor Vexus, one of the Hegemony leaders, was requesting a meeting to discuss terms. Commander Grant entered the room after Morrison called for her. Sir, Admiral Harrison is on secure communication for you. Morrison activated the comm screen. Harrison's face appeared, looking tired but determined. Jake, I assume you got the same message I did. Yes, ma'am. The Hegemony wants to negotiate. They're getting desperate. We've hit 37 facilities in 2 months and rescued over 8,000 prisoners. Their entire operation is falling apart. Morrison leaned back in his chair. What's Earth Command's position on negotiations? Harrison's expression grew hard. They can negotiate all they want. After every facility is destroyed, every prisoner is freed, and every person responsible is brought to justice. And if they refuse, then we keep fighting until the job is done. Morrison smiled grimly. That was the answer he had hoped for. Admiral, Intelligence indicates they're moving prisoners from the remaining facilities to the Fortress World Carevac. They're consolidating their assets. I know. We're preparing for the assault on Carevac, but it won't be easy. That planet has planetary defense systems and a fleet of over 50 ships protecting it. Morrison studied the tactical data on his screen. Carevac was heavily fortified, but it was also where the worst of the slavers had retreated. If they could take that world, they could end this war. Sir, request permission to attend the negotiation meeting. I want to look these people in the eye. Harrison considered this. It could be dangerous, Jake. They've put specific bounties on our task force commanders. I'll take precautions, but someone needs to represent the people we've rescued. They deserve to have their voice heard. Very well, but you'll take a full security detail and Captain Mike Foster's heavy cruiser Retribution as escort. The meeting was arranged to take place at a neutral space station in the Proxima system. Morrison arrived with a small fleet and a delegation that included several rescued prisoners who had volunteered to testify about their treatment. Counselor Vexus was a tall, elegant alien with pale blue skin and large black eyes. She looked like the kind of being who had never done physical labor in her life. 3 other hegemony representatives accompanied her. The meeting took place in a conference room aboard the neutral station. Morrison sat across from Vexus with Zara and 2 other rescued prisoners beside him. The contrast was stark. The elegant aliens in expensive clothing facing humans and former slaves in simple uniforms. Captain Morrison, Vexus began in a smooth voice, I am pleased we could arrange this meeting. The Hegemony Council is prepared to offer substantial compensation to end this unfortunate conflict. Morrison kept his expression neutral. What kind of compensation? We are prepared to pay the Earth government 1 billion credits and provide exclusive trading rights in 12 systems. In return, you would cease all military operations and return any property you have confiscated. Morrison felt anger building in his chest, but he kept his voice calm. Property? The facilities you have attacked and the workers you have relocated. Workers. They called enslaved people workers. Morrison looked at Zara, who was gripping the table so hard her knuckles were white. Counselor Vexus, Morrison said slowly. Let me make something clear. These are not workers, they are prisoners, people who were kidnapped, tortured, and sold like animals. Vexus waved a dismissive hand. Captain, you are applying human standards to a galactic economy. These individuals were acquired through legitimate business transactions. Zara suddenly stood up. Legitimate? Her voice was shaking with rage. You call murdering my family and selling me legitimate? Vexus barely glanced at her. Please control your property, Captain. Morrison stood up slowly. The security guards around the room tensed as they saw the look on his face. She is not property, Morrison said in a deadly quiet voice. She is a human being who was stolen from her family and tortured for 2 years. And you're going to answer for that? Captain, I think you misunderstand the situation, Vexus replied smoothly. The Hegemony Council controls trade routes throughout this sector. If you continue these attacks, we will be forced to impose economic sanctions on all human colonies. Is that a threat? It is a business reality. Your colonies depend on trade for survival. We can make that trade very difficult. Morrison looked at the other hegemony representatives. They all had the same arrogant expression as Vexus. They truly believed they were untouchable. Counselor, let me explain something to you, Morrison said. Humans have a saying, justice isn't a commodity to be traded. Everything is a commodity, Captain. You simply need to understand the proper price. Morrison had heard enough. The price for what you've done is very simple. You're going to shut down every facility, release every prisoner, and surrender for trial. All of you. Vexus laughed. And if we refuse, then we'll shut them down for you. And we'll keep hunting every person involved until justice is done. Vexus's expression grew cold. Captain, you seem to think this is some kind of moral crusade. This is business. We have been conducting these operations for over 50 years with the full knowledge of dozens of governments. Do you really think your small human force can change a system that spans half the galaxy? Morrison smiled, and it wasn't a pleasant expression. Counselor, you made one very big mistake. And what was that? You showed us what you are. The negotiations ended quickly after that. As Morrison prepared to leave, Vexus made one final attempt. Captain, the Council is prepared to increase our offer to 5 billion credits. Surely your government would prefer profit to pointless violence. Morrison stopped at the door and looked back at her. You still don't understand, do you? This isn't about money. This is about right and wrong. And you're on the wrong side. After returning to his ship, Morrison received an urgent communication from Admiral Harrison. Jake, we just intercepted communications from the Hegemony fleet. They're planning to attack the Centauri colonies while our forces are tied up with rescue operations. Morrison felt ice in his stomach. Centauri Prime had over 2 million colonists, most of them families who had left Earth for a better life. How long until they reach Centauri? 72 hours. But we can't get a defense fleet there in time. Morrison studied the tactical display. Admiral, what if we hit Kervac now? Force them to recall their fleet to defend their main base. It's risky, Jake. We're not ready for a full assault on Kervac. We don't have enough ships. Then we make do with what we have. Admiral, they're using innocent colonists as leverage. We can't let that stand. Harrison was quiet for a moment. Very well. Gather your task force and meet Captain Foster at the rendezvous point. We're going to hit Kervac hard and fast. Morrison called his senior officers to the bridge. Grant, Brooks Rodriguez and the other department heads gathered around the tactical display showing the Kervac system. People, we're going to attack the main slaver stronghold, Morrison announced. It's heavily defended and will be outnumbered 3-1. But if we don't stop them here, they'll attack our colonies. Grant studied the tactical data. Sir, this is going to be the toughest fight we've faced. Kervac has planetary shields and over 50 defensive ships. I know the odds, Lisa, but we've rescued thousands of people from these animals. We're not going to let them hurt anyone else. Brooks looked up from his engineering station. Captain, if we're going up against those kinds of defenses, I have some ideas about modifications to our weapon systems. Do it. We have 18 hours to prepare. As his crew worked to prepare for the assault, Morrison went to the cargo bay where many of the rescued prisoners were housed. They had asked to come along on the mission, wanting to help free their fellow captives. Zara approached Morrison as he entered the bay. Captain, we want to fight. These people destroyed our lives. We want to help destroy theirs. Morrison looked at the group of former prisoners. They were from dozens of different species, but they all had the same look in their eyes. They had been broken by the slavers, but they had healed enough to want justice. This is going to be dangerous, Morrison warned them. Many of us might not survive. We know, Zara replied. But we can't let them keep hurting people. If we don't stop them here, they'll just build new facilities somewhere else. Morrison nodded. These people had earned the right to fight for their freedom and the freedom of others. Very well. But you follow orders and you stay safe. We didn't rescue you just to lose you in battle. Zara smiled for the first time since Morrison had known her. Yes, sir. We'll get them all. Morrison hoped she was right. In 18 hours, they would find out if human determination and alien courage were enough to break a 50-year-old empire of evil. The assault on Kervac would either end the slave trade forever or destroy everyone trying to stop it. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kervac system. Morrison stood on the bridge of the Valiant, watching the tactical display as enemy contacts appeared on the screen. 53 ships defended the fortress world, just as intelligence had predicted. Admiral Harrison's voice came over the comm from the flagship. All ships, this is Harrison. Today we end this evil once and for all. Remember, there are thousands of innocent people on that planet counting on us. Morrison opened his comm to his crew. This is the captain. We've come a long way since we answered that first distress call. Today we finish what we started. All hands to battle stations. The Kervac defense fleet was already moving to intercept them. Morrison could see the massive planetary defense platforms orbiting the world below. Each platform had enough firepower to destroy a cruiser with a single salvo. Sir, Grant reported, Enemy fleet is forming up for attack. They're not waiting for us to come to them. Good, Morrison replied. That means they're scared. All ships attack Formation Delta. Target the heavy cruisers first. The battle began with a massive exchange of weapons fire. The space between the fleets lit up with energy beams and missile explosions. Morrison felt the Valiant shudder as enemy fire hit their shields. Shields at 80%, Brooks called out, but holding steady. Morrison watched the tactical display as the two fleets clashed. The human ships were outnumbered, but they had better armor and weapons. More importantly, they were fighting for justice while the slavers were fighting for profit. Captain, Rodriguez called from her intelligence station, I'm reading massive energy signatures from the planet's surface. They're powering up the main defense grid. Morrison knew what that meant. The planetary weapons could target ships in orbit with devastating accuracy. They needed to get past the fleet and take out those platforms quickly. Grant, signal Captain Foster. Have the Retribution and her escorts break off and attack the defense platforms. We'll handle the fleet. Sir, that leaves us outnumbered 4-1. Then we better be 4 times better than they are. The battle raged for 2 hours. Morrison's task force fought with desperate courage, knowing that failure meant death for thousands of prisoners on the planet below. Slowly, they began to win. The rescued prisoners who had joined the human forces proved their worth. Zara and her team had hacked into the slaver communication systems, feeding intelligence to the human ships about enemy movements and tactics. Captain, Zara's voice came over the comm from the intelligence center. I found something in their communications. Warlord Krex is on the planet's surface in the main compound. He's planning to execute all the prisoners if the planet falls. Morrison felt cold rage in his chest. Krex had been his target since this all began. The alien who had tried to buy human silence with blood money was about to learn what human justice really meant. Location? Morrison asked. Central compound, level 5. Heavy security, but I can get you the access codes. Morrison turned to Grant. Lisa, you have the ship. I'm taking a strike team to the surface. Sir, that's too dangerous. Let the Marines handle it. No, this one is personal. Morrison gathered a team of Marines and several rescued prisoners who knew the compound layout. As their shuttle descended through the planet's atmosphere, Morrison could see the battle continuing in space above them. The human fleet was winning, but slowly. The shuttle landed in a cleared area near the main compound. Morrison and his team moved quickly through the facility, following the route Zara had provided. They encountered resistance from slaver guards, but the human Marines were better trained and equipped. As they fought their way deeper into the compound, Morrison began to hear sounds he remembered from the first station. Voices crying for help. The sound of people in pain. The smell of fear and desperation. They reached the main prison level and found it. Thousands of prisoners in cages that stretched as far as Morrison could see. The scope of the suffering was overwhelming. Some of the cages held entire families. Others contained beings who had clearly been tortured for entertainment. My God, one of the Marines whispered. Morrison opened his comm to the surface team. This is Morrison. We've found the main prison level. Thousands of prisoners. We need medical teams down here immediately. But before they could begin rescue, operations. Alarms began sounding throughout the compound. Emergency lights flashed and automated voices announced in multiple languages that all prisoners would be executed in 10 minutes. Morrison's team split up to begin opening cages while he headed for the command center. According to Zara's intelligence, that's where Krex would be waiting. Morrison found the Vorthak warlord in a luxurious office overlooking the prison levels. Krex was tall and heavily muscled, with scarred hide and cruel yellow eyes. He stood behind a control panel that could flood the prison levels with poison gas. Ah, the human captain, Krex said without turning around. You have caused me considerable trouble. It's about to get worse, Morrison replied, his weapon trained on the alien. Krex laughed. You think you have won? Even if you kill me, there are others who will continue this business. The demand for slaves will always exist. Maybe, but you won't be around to see it. Krex spun around, his own weapon in his massive hand. I have killed hundreds of beings with my bare hands, human. What makes you think you can stop me? Morrison didn't answer with words. He fired twice, hitting Krex in the chest. The massive alien staggered, but didn't fall. His species was tough. Morrison had to give him that. Krex fired back, his shot barely missing Morrison's head. The two began circling each other in the small office, looking for an opening. "You know what your mistake was, human?" Krex snarled, as he tried to get a clear shot. "You think everyone shares your soft morality. You think justice matters in a galaxy where might makes right." Morrison dodged another shot and returned fire. "You're wrong about that. Justice always matters. To whom? The buyers who purchase my merchandise? The governments who look the other way? The traders who transport slaves across the galaxy?" Morrison's next shot hit Krex in the shoulder, spinning, the alien around. "To the people you've hurt, to the families you've destroyed, to everyone who believes that some things are worth fighting for." Krex tried to reach the control panel to trigger the gas release, but Morrison was faster. His final shot hit the alien warlord center mass, dropping him to the floor. Morrison stood over Krex's body for a moment, then smashed the control panel to prevent any accidental gas release. Justice had been served, but there was still work to do. Over the next 6 hours, Morrison's team worked with the Marines and medical personnel to evacuate over 12,000 prisoners from the Carevac compound. Many were in critical condition, but they were alive and free. The space battle had ended with complete victory for the human fleet. The slaver ships were destroyed or captured, and the planetary defense systems were shut down. More importantly, the assault team had captured detailed records of the entire slave network. 3 days later, Morrison stood in the same conference room where he had met with Counselor Vexus. This time, it was Vexus and 12 other Hegemony Council members who sat in restraints facing charges of crimes against sentient beings. The evidence against them was overwhelming: financial records, communication logs, and testimony from thousands of rescued prisoners painted a picture of systematic evil spanning 50 years. "The Hegemony Council will be dissolved," Admiral Harrison announced. "All assets will be seized and used to compensate victims. The member governments will face sanctions until they reform their laws regarding sentient rights." Vexus looked at Morrison with hatred in her black eyes. "You think this changes anything, human? There will always be those willing to buy and sell others. You cannot police the entire galaxy." Morrison leaned forward. "Maybe not. But we can make sure everyone knows the cost of trying." The trials of the Hegemony Council members lasted 6 months. All were found guilty and sentenced to life imprisonment. The slave trade network was completely destroyed, with over 40,000 prisoners rescued and returned to their homes. Morrison received promotion to admiral, but he turned down the desk job that came with it. Instead, he requested to continue commanding task forces dedicated to protecting innocent people throughout human space. The rescued prisoners became some of the strongest advocates for galactic justice reform. Zara founded an organization dedicated to finding and rescuing trafficking victims. Many others joined human colonial defense forces, determined to prevent others from suffering as they had. A year after the first distress call, Morrison stood on the observation deck of the Valiant, watching a convoy of passenger ships heading for the colonies. Aboard those ships were some of the aliens they had rescued, choosing to start new lives in human space where they felt safe. Dr. Martinez joined him at the observation window. "Any regrets, Jake?" Morrison thought about the question. The campaign had cost lives and resources. It had strained relations with some alien governments, but it had also saved thousands of innocent people and sent a message throughout the galaxy. "No regrets, Helen, we did the right thing. The galaxy certainly knows about human justice now. Some species are calling us dangerous extremists." Morrison smiled. "And others are calling us protectors. I can live with both reputations." Commander Grant's voice came over the comm system. "Captain, we're receiving.